A couple of months ago, I spent £3,282 on new suspension for the motorhome. That is the VB Semi Air suspension on the back and the FSD strut kit on the front. And I've done about 1,500 miles or so since I had it installed, and I thought it was time I make a video to explain kind of what I like about it, what I dislike about it, whether I would recommend it, and whether I've went for something else in hindsight. Short answer, yes. I probably should have went for something else, but I didn't. Let's explain a little bit more. So I thought I'd bring it out on a little drive as I test a new tyre pressure, because I've ran these BF Goodrich tyres at about 50 PSI all winter because I run them low, they're comfortable, they're not too quiet, you lose a bit of miles per gallon. However, I am on my way to Norway in a month. I've got a month-long road trip to Norway and back, probably around about 5,000 miles, maybe more, that I'm going to be driving, and I want to get the best miles per gallon I possibly can on that road trip. So I currently run them at 60 on this test. They feel all right. I might try and push them up to maybe 65, see how I get on. It might be a little bit too rattly. But anyway, let's talk about this suspension. So first off, why did I get the suspension? Well, so the back suspension, the Semi Air, I got mainly because we massively changed the weight distribution in the van when we changed the electrical system. The van comes as standard with the lead acid batteries at the front, not really anything in the back. We've taken that out, which has obviously lost the weight from the front, and instead we've put the lithium setup in the back, which, although it doesn't weigh much more, it's at the very back of the van, actually quite a bit behind the rear axle as well, so it's dragging that back down quite a bit. Again, it's not riding on the bump stops, it's not even really that close, but it is it's starting to sag a bit. And obviously we are going to be travelling more in the summer as well this year, so we'll have the barbecue in the back, we'll have some seats in the back, we'll have the fire pit, the tyre table, all of them things in the back that we haven't currently got in the boot at the minute. We are going to have that. So it will add more weight at the back and it will add more sag at the back. So I didn't want to be riding on the bump stops. So we've got the VB Semi Air with the digital touch thing, and it works great. It takes roughly about 30 seconds from being completely like aired out to raising it to about 2.8 bar, which is there or thereabouts what we sort of normally run it at when we've got bits in the back. So it doesn't take long at all. Would I say it's really worth the money? It's one of them things like where you don't really notice the benefits of it, so you don't feel like you're getting your money's worth, but if you hadn't spent the money, you would notice the negative sides of not spending your money, if that helps at all. So no, it's not a glorious, magnificent change where you're like, wow, I hugely feel a difference. But if you didn't do the upgrade, you probably would notice the lack of having that upgrade quite a bit. So I'm glad I bought it. Whether you decide to go for that or not, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's well worth the money, but I wouldn't say it's not worth spending on either. It's up to you. I've got a different opinion on the front though. So to explain more about the front, I'm going to go back home first because I'm nearly home, and we'll talk about the pros and cons, mostly cons, of the FSD Struts. Now, before I start discussing the good and the bad, which there's quite a bit of bad about the suspension, I just want to say a massive thanks to everyone who pre-ordered our Cairngorms and Highlands road trip guide. All the pre-orders have been long dispatched. Means a lot. I'm glad you have given us so much good feedback on these. Thank you very much. But it is March, which means it's spring, and to celebrate the start of spring and the start of the travelling weather again, I want to have a special offer. So if you want to visit Scotland and see all of the very best that there is in mainland Scotland, start on the Cairngorms, visit the Cairngorms. Once you get to Inverness, jump up onto the NC 500 improved route all the way around the top, the north, come back down the west. Once you get to Fort William, hop across onto the ultimate Scottish road trip, across the Skye, back through my legs, see some incredible scenery, some incredible beaches. Now, for 50 offers only, I'm selling all three of these guides, special offer for 40 quid. That's 3 for 2. Use the code SPRING25, this one, to get 3 for 2. So to drop this price down to 40 quid for all three of them. And if you manage to get your hands on one before the sellout, enjoy, because I guarantee there will not be a better road trip that you could possibly do in Scotland, or in the UK in fact, than these three combined. Anyway, let's have a little chat about this suspension, shall we? Well, Where do I start with these front struts? First off, would I recommend them? No, I wouldn't, to be honest. There's a few issues with them. First off, I'll kind of explain the backstory. So the struts and the springs that I bought initially are the FSD struts plus the comfort springs. Now it turned out that the axle weight on the front of this van isn't heavy enough for the comfort springs, so we got a massive lift. It looked proper cool, I loved it. But they were just far too strong, so it felt like we were kind of driving on scaffolding bars. There was barely any give, and as soon as we went over any pothole, even over a speed bump, as soon as you got off the backside and the wheels were dropping, the springs essentially shot the wheels down. We got a mighty thud every time, and I took it back to Headley's. I'm like, look, there's something wrong. I don't know if it's the top mounts or something, and it turned out it was the springs. The van wasn't heavy enough at the front for that. So they got in touch with VB. They asked for the axle weight and everything. We went through that. They sent out the light springs, which is what's on currently. Now, I will say, the standard shocks and springs that come on the van, when you turn in the corner, the van would just sink into that corner. These struts don't seem to do that. They do seem to like hold that a lot better. So you feel a lot more, it's not quite as soft as your cornering. Which is great, which is what I was after, because previously it was just like you were on like kind of pillows that just gradually, and you're like, whoa, all of your bends and corners you went around. It wasn't a nice drive. So that does feel better for that. But that's all it feels better for. Everything else, it feels like the standard shocks, really. Maybe a little bit worse. So when you're overtaking a lorry, when you're overtaking a bus, when they're overtaking you, when it's a bit windy, that sort of buffeting feeling where it's almost as if you're being kind of sucked towards the truck, the lorry, the bus, whatever. It's a lot worse in this. When a truck, the whole van, the front just seems to sort of rock. And it's a strange feeling, and I don't like it. I was hoping to get rid of that by changing the suspension. And if I'm being completely honest, I do feel like again, I wouldn't say I've wasted the money on the back, not at all, because although I don't notice the benefit of it massively, I know for a fact I would notice it if I didn't have them. So that's kind of, I've like had to pay money to negate a problem that I've kind of caused myself, really, is probably the best way to think about it. So I wouldn't talk you out of getting them, but be aware that like you kind of, like it's like buying a really uncomfortable pair of shoes because you like it, and then buying some really expensive socks to counteract the shoes that you bought. You're kind of back to square one. That's probably an awful analogy. Don't get us wrong, but that's kind of how I feel about that. The front, I feel like I'm no further forward at all, really. But I've spent a bit of money. Feels the same. The problems I was trying to get around, I don't feel like I've getting around. It's not a, yeah, I would say it's not a benefit at all. So I wouldn't recommend these at the front. Not at all. In hindsight, I don't think I could have justified the cost of the full air, to be honest, because it's a lot more money. Although everything I've heard about the ride quality on that is incredible, but it should be at that sort of price. If I wasn't getting the hydraulic leveling legs and I was going to use the air suspension as the leveling for when I'm parked up, it might have been worth it because I spent a bit on the leveling legs. Combined, I've probably spent about the same. Should I have went for full air? Maybe. Might have been a more logical decision. That's not what I went for. Yes, I kind of regret the front. No, I don't really regret the back, and I definitely don't regret the hydraulic legs. I really like them. They're great. Much more rigid, much more planted. Great. Love them. But yeah. Anyway, let's have a look at the controller for the Semi Air, because, like I say, this one I kind of do recommend. So I've mounted it here. Just stuck on. I didn't screw it in. Turn it on. Does it work? There we go. Can you see? There we have it. So it's showing you it's running currently at 2.8 bar. Press that button, flashes. I'll just drop it down to whatever I want. See a 0.5, and you don't really want to be running it below 2 bar while you're driving, and you don't really want to be running it anywhere above 2.8 to 3 bar either, from what I've been told. I normally run at roughly about 2.8 while I'm driving, and I normally just air it out fully when I'm parked up. The reason I air it out fully is because, again, the hydraulic legs are much more stable the less the need to lift the van. So it's pointless me having the van sitting up high and then needing the hydraulic legs to lift the van even higher just to compensate for the wheels or anything like that. So I normally just air it out, which brings the back down more level with the front, because obviously it normally sits like that a little bit. Now it drops it down. It's much closer to level before I even start putting the legs up. So now it's sitting at 0.4 bar. I'll just press it again, take it up to say 2.8, and then you hear the compressor, and then it'll take itself up. It takes roughly about 30 seconds to lift the back to where they were. So there we have it. I've had a lot of people asking sort of what do I think about the air and all the other bits. Like I say, the back, yeah, good, works fine. The front, wouldn't recommend it at all. Most people do just go for the back. I wanted the front for the additional sort of comfort and sort of drivability, which I definitely haven't got. So like, if I could take it off, put the stock back on and get my money back, I would. But obviously that's not an option. I have got the original springs, but then what's the point? So yeah, that's that. I hope it's been a help for anyone. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comments below, and I'll try and get around to answering them. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.